Okay. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for your patience. I know we'll have a couple more people showing up. Again, please leverage the chat if you have any questions. This is casual in all the ways. I'll try not to swear too much in case there's any kids at home that are watching and learning about home ownership and building wealth through real estate. But most of all, we want this to be an approachable, casual conversation. That's what's most important to us. And so we'll go ahead and get started. So home ownership, not if, but when and how. So I think that that is an issue where home ownership seemed like it was for some people and not for others. So part of our mission here is to ensure that everyone knows it's their opportunity and that they can choose to figure out what that looks like. I think our write-up says whether in the next 30 days or the next 30 months, like what does the planning look like? Hi. What does the planning look like? So how are we thinking about it in a long-term and short-term space? So 90% of millionaires created their wealth through real estate. You know, the 0.0001 percenters that invented Facebook or Teslas or whatever, they're going to do their thing. There's going to always be that outlier. But when it comes to building long-term wealth, the system is built to do it through real estate. So how do we leverage that system? Homeowners, this is a devastating and staggering stat, but homeowners have 44 times the wealth of renters. There's just so much data around when you own a home, you're more likely to have a savings, and then you're more likely to be making investments, investing in your community too. Hi, Terrence. Come in. No, you're good. Though we just started. So get in, do your thing. James is here. Okay. Yep. We're going to get started. I'll give Terrence the okay. You're on the team. So I'm going to give you shit later. Just kidding. So there's some staggering statistics. I am Lindsay Benton. I'm very caffeinated today, so I will try and calm down a little bit. It was no option but to over caffeinate today. I own Live.Laugh.Denver Real Estate Group. I've been in the business 10 years. I've been in the game. We talk about it, you know, in the game, in the you know, doing time. So I'm 10 years in, and I launched Live.Laugh.Denver almost 7 years ago. And so we'll tell you a little bit about that. Who are we? We're friends who become colleagues, colleagues who become friends. It's really cute, but it's also that we commiserate together and also collaborate with one another. It's a fast moving market. And so that's a pick of our team. Our core belief is that everyone thrives when they feel at home. And that applies for wherever that home is, whether it's a physical home, right? Or if it's at home within this brokerage or at home within your community. And so really making people feel a part of something is how it's been proven people thrive. So we believe that. Our mission is to provide the most professional and personalized experience in the industry by educating and empowering you to make your real estate goals a reality, minimizing your stress, maximizing your investment, and laughing a little along the way. I've said that 1,000 times. I still read it. But it is at our core, and the cursive words, not just for looks, but those are really what I hit hard on. The biggest piece for me is the educating and empowerment piece. Real estate is not for somebody in real estate or in lending to tell you what to do, but rather to give you the tools you need so that you can make the decisions to feel confident in what you're doing. So first, we're going to talk about why for home ownership. It really is that good. It's simple, but not easy. And then we're going to play the what if game, because that's what a lot of people play, right? But what if, but what if, but what if? So I'm going to go through that. We have some myths we're going to bust, and then plenty of time for Q&A. I want this to be interactive. Again, this is a casual environment. I want you guys to feel like you can ask any questions you want. There are no bad questions, and I'm sure I can give you some bad answers. So we'll do that too. It really is that good. The financial benefits of home ownership are incredible. There were times when renting was cheaper than buying in Denver Metro. That's not the case right now. And statistically speaking, my masseuse, who I love, she's paying $800 a month for rent. She's been paying that for 10 years. That's hard to beat, right? But long-term, that's not going to benefit her. So it's like, how do we talk about those kinds of things? But the whole goal with home ownership is to really be thinking more in the long-term versus the short-term. The tax benefits, again, the system that was built by our forefathers. Speaking of President's Day, as Joy pointed out, it was built for people to own land. And so if you're owning property, it is going to help you build long-term wealth. You get to benefit from depreciation if it's in an investment property. You get to write off interest, both for your primary and for investment properties. And then property taxes also can be written off. The tax-free on capital gains allows people to upgrade their homes. So if you make $250,000, up to $250,000 on a home as a single, or up to 500 when married, you can actually take that as proceeds and do whatever you wish with it. I'm never going to encourage you to just go on a vacation with that. We want to see you keep that in real estate somehow, some way. But those are capital gains that you can take on your primary residence, which is a huge, when you think about putting your own tax rate on that income, that's a huge benefit. And then of course the appreciation. We will talk kind of about where we see appreciation going, both Denver Metro, nationwide, and into that, but a little later. Ultimately, appreciation, since they started tracking this in 1891, has been at 3.5% nationwide year over year. We've obviously seen some recessions. The Great Depression, the Great Recession has happened during that time. But ultimately, linearly speaking, it's just going up and up and up at a slow rate. The best part is you're getting the appreciation on the total asset, not just on what you've invested. And that is really where real estate breaks the mold as far as wealth growth, is that if you put $20,000 into a stock account, so what they call it, you can tell you a ton of that investing, an investment account, mutual fund, buy a stock with it, crypto, if you put it into the metaverse, which I very much don't understand, but you're going to get the appreciation on that $20,000. If you use that $20,000 to put 3% down on a home, you're going to get math. You're going to get the appreciation on the full home's value. 25 by 3 is 7. Did you do it? No. Anyways, on the full, I know, never. You're an accounting degree. Anyways, you're going to get the appreciation on the full asset. So if you're using that $20,000 to buy a $350,000 home, you're going to get the appreciation on $350,000 instead of just on the $20,000. So that is, one of the biggest ways that real estate is different than any other investment you're buying. And it's a forced savings account. I fell into, part of my story is that I fell into, which there's so many things that need to be acknowledged with the falling into, but buying my first home when I was 22, mainly that I had no debt. I mean, I was able to graduate college debt free, which is not something a lot of people experience. That was a long time ago. Also, it was 18 years ago. So college wasn't as expensive. But I was able to buy a home at 22. And I always joke that if it weren't for that home, and it's not a joke, it's also very true. If it weren't for that home that I bought at 22, I would have nothing to show for my 20s. It was just like, right? You knew me then. It wasn't good. And it was a forced savings account. And I've been able to see that appreciate. And as you're paying your payment each and every month, you're paying down your principal balance and you're gaining equity with that. And then you're also gaining equity because it's appreciating. So we talked about last week in the investing course, which will include in our follow-up, the video from that about the 4 pillars of real estate investing that hone in more on the finances. But it is a forced savings account. Okay, so that's the financials. And then also, I mean, we are sitting in pretty high inflation right now. 7% is where we're at right now, depending upon what, without going too far into speculation of what's happening in, with Russia and Ukraine. The expectation is we'll probably see heightened inflation. We'll see some more economic uncertainty, which usually leads to, oh gosh, Mercy. Hello, Mercy. No, it's good. Come on in. No, come on in. Sit wherever. It's the best way to hedge against inflation because what you're doing is locking in a low interest payment on a appreciating asset. There's literally no other way to do that. I mean, maybe there's like, if you find another way along the way and it's in the metaverse, like tell me about it. I won't understand it. But as far as tried and true methods, that's the best way to do it. So as we continue to have economic uncertainty for all of the reasons, including but not limited to what's going on in the Ukraine, and then also the pandemic and everything, it's everything COVID has done to society and all the things, supply chain, trade wars, even prior to that, we're going to continue to see inflation. The best way is to lock something in now. Okay. So that's like money talk. Money's money, right? Like we can always go make more. It's important. But even more important to me is the stability that you get from home ownership. So there's a ton of data around housing stability, whether it be in a long-term rental or a long-term living situation, or home ownership lowers stress levels. And the lower your stress levels are, the happier you are, which is weird because I feel very stressed, but happy right now. So that's an interesting and both and. You've locked in the payment amount, the uncertainty that people deal with when their landlord comes to them and says, and now your rent in 60 days will be X, or I'm going to sell your house. I'm going to sell the place you're living in. And so you have to go try and find something else. That level of uncertainty is part of the reason that it's this underlying global stress of what's going to happen. I'm not in control, right? So you're in control. You get to be in control of your own destiny. You get to, kind of decide how long you're going to be there. Once you have the asset, you have the control. There's, again, data around children performing better in schools. I'm happy to send all this out. The like actual studies are pretty, they make me tired. It's like a lot of numbers, but children perform better in schools. Again, it's that stability, lower stress, healthier living conditions. If you own your own home and you suspect black mold, what are you going to do? Act on it. You call your landlord. How quickly are they going to get to it? You don't know, right? They may test, say, oh, nope, it's good. You don't know what your conditions are. Obviously, mold's a pretty extreme case, but other living conditions that are contributed to by having a well-maintained home. You get to control your aesthetic environment. Like I remember being like, I can paint my walls whatever color I want when I bought my condo. I literally never painted any of them because I really liked the colors that the previous owner picked, but I could, and that was fun. And it was fun to know I could make whatever changes I wanted. And you do create a rainy day fund with your equity that you can borrow against. So as you're continuing to pay down that principal, you're building your equity, which allows you to leverage that equity to pay down any, unforeseen issues. So community benefits. So that's the third piece of it, is that you get to create these true relationship with your neighbors. And I do think that brings so much happiness. You are in our office now. This is our office space. My home is 1 block away. So I'm very invested in the community. My son's school is across the street where he'll go after he's done at his, we call it a school because it makes sense to pay so much money, but his educational daycare. And it's just, you're so much more invested. So you start volunteering in your community, you're taking better care of your home. And then you're of course patronizing local businesses and creating relationships there. So there's the community piece of it too. And again, when we talk about people feeling at home, it should be within their communities too, not just the 4 walls of their home.
And you can plant trees.
Oh yeah, sorry. And you can plant trees. We have our community arborist. Did I do it right? Forester, community forester. But yes, Terrence.
Is there an average price of a house right now in Denver? What's the property taxes?
That's a really good question. So Terrence asked the average price of a home in Denver and the average taxes. So taxes vary a lot. So in Denver, we have metro associations. For instance, like Central Park, Stapleton Development, they're at 1.5%. The average tax in Denver is around 1%. And then of course there's senior discounts for homes that they've been in for a while. The average single family home in Denver is right around 700 right now for a single family home. So it's ever changing. And we can pull data really specific to like, is it condos? Is it size? Is it, you know what I mean? And that will help, kind of guide that. So the number we watch is the single family home for average. But Martin mentioned trees, and that is really important. So all jokes aside, he is a tree person. I botch it all. So good. But he went through a lot of classes, and what Denver Digs, is they offer the ability to get a tree for free. Yep. And then you just have to plant it. Yep. See, I did it. Obviously trees are super important, especially as we talk about global warming. And then of course, like the city gets hot for a reason. There's not as much trees. There's not as much shade, right? Okay. Any other questions about the benefits of homeownership and why it's that good? Or do we all know that? That's why we're here. Okay.
Can you, sorry.
Yeah.
To interrupt, the 44%, that is a staggering statistic.
Yep.
to me. So how's that broken down?
So 44 times.
Yeah.
So it's even worse than 44%.
Oh, did I say percent?
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's 44 times. A lot of what's taken in there into account there is that people, if they are homeowners, they're also usually reflecting a more established
right.
life, right? And then the age and the time that comes with that and the savings that go with it, right? So whether it's retirement and then obviously the equity in their homes. Renters are more likely to live paycheck to paycheck. We're going to talk a little bit about spending and what that looks like and how that's affected by homeownership. And so then also with the 44 times, it's taking into account negatives. So if you own if you're making payments on a car and you don't own a home, it's considered a negative. So you're in a negative net worth. Yeah. And so that gets put into that 44 time big number. Yeah. Good question, Mark.
So with our extremely high rent or real estate market, what happens if I decide to sell my home and live in a van for, how long do I have till capital gains affects me?
Down by the river.
Yeah, wherever.
Mark wants to live in a van, is what I understand from him. Like the Chris Farley jokes.
That's more like in the Keys.
In the Keys. Okay. So with capital gains, if you sell the home and you've lived in it 2 of the last 5 years, you don't ever have to reinvest it in real estate. I advise that you do, right? Because that's better for you long term. But let's say that, a person has $250,000 in appreciation. They sell their home, they take their $250,000 and they downsize. They use $50,000 for down payment. They take their $200 to do whatever they want with it. You're never paying taxes on that.
If you exceed that 250 though, is that when you pay capital gains even though you've lived?
That is when you definitely want to contact your accountant to see what that looks like. So when you look at the 250, you can also take out. So if you bought a home for 250,000, it's worth 500 now. That's your 250. That's fine. Let's say you bought it for 150. It's worth 500 now, but you can go back and show that you put $50,000 into the kitchen and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can count those costs to offset that. So that's definitely where you would want an accountant involved. You always want an accountant involved if you're not paying taxes on things. James.
So I see 640 as a credit score on the screen. I've been told 680. Do you think even in this market, 640 and all that, it'll still be fine?
Yeah. You're in mortgages,
I
right?
think at that point, you contact a mortgage lender.
Yes.
And then you can have really in-depth conversations where people can get creative on how you work with your credit score, where we can say we can help you now, or we can do all these fun things and help you get to the point where it makes more sense for you.
Yep. So 640 gets you access to more options. I would say under that is where you're going to run into issues and paying additional prices, additional fees for getting your rates down and that kind of stuff.
But just like you should contact an accountant.
Absolutely.
You always contact like a mortgage professional.
Yes.
They can really
Yes.
help you dig in and see like what can be done for you. 'Cause sometimes
Yes.
people will not buy because they think their credit's not good enough.
Oh yeah, we're talking about that. Oh, we're going to talk about credit, girl. Yeah, we are. So yeah, I mean, your credit score is first of all, the credit system in America, and I only speak to America because I've never had my credit anywhere else that I know of. We'll find out. But it is it's based off nothing. It's so tricky, right? And if you have your credit pulled for a car, it's very different than when you have your credit pulled for a home, which also is like, so it's really hard to know what to do. Like, I think that my gut instinct was before in real estate, like, well, I just need to pay off that credit card and close it. It's like, nope, actually, if you work with a credit repair person, they're going to say you're better off keeping it and then put $50 a month on it and pay it off or whatever. There's so much strategy with it. It's a very complicated algorithm. So credit scores, are very tricky in that sense. And so it's always about working with a professional. So I put an ideal scenario here for a first-time home buyer. And ideal means it's just easiest. So you're a W-2 employee. As a contractor, as we all are in this business and any business, where you're an independent contractor or the business owner, you're 1099, you need 2 years, maybe 1 year if Fannie Mae is in a good mood that month. That's always changing too. But ideally you have this W-2 income and it's just salary. Once you start involving commissions, that's going to change things. If you switch industries, if you switch pay types, that's really complicated and why we're going to always ask that you talk to a mortgage broker. I like to say we get to do the fun part and I get to know like a dangerous amount about mortgages, but it's ever changing all the time. The mortgage requirements are changing as much as the rates are. It's every day. And so that is why it's always changing.
So it's not the traditional 20% anymore.
It's not. Are you teeing me up?
Right.
I think he is. He's like already read my Mythbusters at the end. So if you have that 3 to 5% down payment, that's going to allow you to get into a home. We're going to talk a little bit about what the Denver market is requiring right now, but straight up first time home buyer, the expectations a lot of times is that you make a ton of money, you have 20% down and your credit's perfect, which is an 800. And what I'm saying is like, you're pretty ideal if you're at W-2, you have the 3 to 5% down payment and the credit score. The reality though, is that a lot of us, are 1099 contractors, maybe there's a cash income piece and then we're doing, we're having to get creative. That was really common when marijuana was legalized here and it's still not legalized federally and they hadn't really figured it out. A lot of times people are leveraging down payment assistance. There's multiple programs for that. And then maybe we need credit repair and credit optimization. It may not even be repair. You may be at 640, but we know if we tinker with this and tinker with that, you can get to 680 and it's going to save you X amount of dollars a month, right? So there's always work to be done. And that's why we say 30 days or 30 months before you buy, let's talk, right? Let's put together a long-term plan, because it's all so custom. Are we getting questions? We're good. Okay. All credits not created equally. I think, gosh, I put this slide together a while ago. James was here for it. The shoe one is so good. The shoe Giphy or whatever. Yeah. So if you go to get your car pulled, if you get approved for a credit card that's really high, consumer, like that kind of debt is not good, right? Student loans, Fannie and Freddie, which are the government, is the government involvement with loans. They are figuring out ways around the amount of student loan debt that we're dealing with now and the burden that has brought on our 20 and 30 and some 40 somethings as well, especially when you're getting master's programs and all of that. So how that affects the debt to income ratio, but do not go out and buy an expensive car. Don't go buy a car, like drive the thing you have until it dies, because you don't need that to negatively affect your debt to income ratio. And a car until this year or until the last year was a depreciating asset. Oddly enough, because of the shortage in the chips, also things I don't completely understand because I'm not a software developer or a computer chip developer. We've seen cars actually go up in value over the years because there's such a shortage. Again, that's supply and demand. It will self-correct. The old idea that you drive a car off the lot, it depreciates, is accurate 99% of the time. And then consumer debt, like do not buy clothes, do not buy things you do not need on credit when you're trying to build long-term wealth. That should be seen as a luxury, right? It's one thing to put groceries on a credit card. It's quite another to get new shoes. If we have time, I'll tell you about the time I bought $40 red leather pumps. This was that long ago. And they ended up costing me $300 because I totally forgot that they were on my Macy's account. And that dinged it. I mean, I was 20. I was not 20. No, I was like 28 or 7. I needed them for a Christmas party. It was a whole thing. And I didn't even think about it because I never used that card, but it ended up costing me, so like we all do these things, right? So whereas buying a home is going to show as the debt to income ratio, but it actually is going to improve your credit. So I made this slide because somebody said to me, I don't want to buy a home because I don't want it to make my credit worse. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. You'll do the credit inquiry to get approved, but buying the home is going to actually improve your credit. And then again, student loans can be a net neutral when working with the right programs. But again, the shoes.
I got a question about W-2.
Yes.
So you gotta have a job for 2 years, right?
Not if you're W-2.
Okay.
So if you're W-2 and you work within the same industry and switch jobs, you're okay. If you're in the same industry.
Okay, because like I work for Zillow and they shut
Yeah.
the permit down, so it's like, what is that?
Okay, let's clarify what Terrence does for Zillow. You don't just throw the Z word around here. Like you're welcome in my house.
I'm fired anyways. I technically do not work for Zillow.
You do still though.
Well, for like the next couple of months.
Yeah. So he's part of the layoffs, right? The human effect of what happens when Zillow tried to iBuy. And so Terrence's experience is actually in home inspections, right? So if you were to switch from that W-2 position to another W-2 home inspecting job or something in the same industry, it's a lot of like, we might need a letter of explanation, right? Or maybe you switch industries, but if you're W-2 to W-2, but it's
So that won't affect me trying to buy a house. But
correct.
like how long, like can I take a year off, a few months off? Like I'm saying, like when would like a lender be like, okay, you lost, like you're not at this job anymore, but
Lenders don't like gaps in employment.
okay.
We need to explain them. Yeah. But the cool thing is if you're straight out of school, like a lot of perception, like for people that are right out of school, which is when you need the least out of a home, right? You just need a space for yourself. You can secure it. You don't need to have 2 years of W-2 experience. So that's definitely one of the myths is like, you need the 2 years. School could be your experience. And then you could be 2 months into a job and show that and be able to get. So that's something I really like to educate the like youngins about is that you can do that really quite quickly.
Does that vary per lender?
Yes.
It does, okay.
And per program.
I was told something different. Like I had to be at my job for more than 5 years, I believe. Or 2 years, sorry, in order to qualify for the program that I was going for.
So it's program by program,
Okay.
but let's get microed on that after this
Okay.
and figure out which program would work.
Sorry, Lindsay, I thought you were finished, but.
That's okay,
let me
Terrence.
just clarify
We
this
interrupt
one
each
first.
other.
So I have to get another job in, like, what if I'm tired of real estate, which I'm not, but I'm saying, what if I got another job doing something else? And that just affects me being able to.
So, I mean, the argument, which group are you with? Sorry.
I'm with PRMG and then a local firm called Charismatic, so we're kind of like a dual.
Yeah. So we do have a lender in house, which is always helpful because it's always changing.
Yeah.
And so it'll just,
Yeah, I mean, I think the best piece of advice is it's hard to say like definitively without like looking at all of your forms. But the best piece of advice is just before you get, you're kind of intimidated to go to a lender and say, will you help me? And if that lender's like, no, you don't qualify because of this, then the reality is you can shop for a different lender, right? So you're the customer, you're the borrower, and you have the power. And so if somebody's not willing to help you or can't find something, a specific program that works for you, then I think it's advantageous to look around. And I think your realtors should have a lot of really great connections in this area.
yeah. And a lot of great lenders will also say, we can't service that, but here's who could. So there's, the loans that are sold into the secondary, before we go too far down that, but then there's also portfolio loans. So I always go to First Bank as my example for that. You get Terrence water. I see him. He's doing sign language. She's got you. You guys, like make yourselves at home. We're all here together. But First Bank as a portfolio lender can do things that some mortgage brokers can't do. And you may pay for that, right? You may pay a little bit of a higher interest rate. You may have to open accounts with them or whatever it is. One of the First Bank options that they do is that you can, if you intend to occupy the property, you don't have to do it within 60 days, which is huge for like a model home scenario. And so there's just, but they hold on to the loan and they can do really competitive rates. So like those kinds of things that are like one-offs. But yeah.
I think a good lender will be saying, it's never like, no, you don't qualify for this right now, but we give you great advice as to what to look for. So
Yeah.
if it's a small gap, it's just an explanation letter.
Mhm.
If it's like a longer gap, then, maybe it's like, okay, like in 6 months, like you'll have enough, case stubs and you should be able to show that you work there and that you will be all about making sure that, when the group sells your loan, that you are considered somebody who's able to repay.
Yep. And so too, like the industry can be kind of broad. Like you could say, oh, I worked for Zillow. It's a tech company, just like they tell their investors. They're not.
No, lenders look at like a W-2, or like your Dr. Trump in the previous year and then your last 2 pay stubs?
Yeah, so we'll look for 2 years of W-2s and then your pay stubs for it's like a lot of it's like 2 months. But I mean, there's always creative solutions and there's always, I mean, in this, especially as we just went through a pandemic, there's a lot of understanding that maybe people have real reasons for having gaps in work, or, you know, maybe like for me, you know, maybe you're making a career change and that's important for you, but there's still potential and you still have great potential to be making money down the line. Just because you've changed your job, you know, doesn't mean that you're not gonna be able to pay a loan. But like if you're in the process of buying a house, maybe don't change your job.
Yes.
Those are all-
Nor buy a car
Yeah, things that-
ever, or go charge your furniture or anything. Just once you get under contract, you just don't do anything. You definitely don't buy. They weren't patent. I do need to find, Amanda has made a request for the photo. I'll have to find them. They were very high. I only kept them on for a very short amount of time. They were awful. Yes, Nicole.
When you said like going from industry to industry, so what if, for example, like me or someone who's in IT who can go in any
Mhm.
industry? Is it your job, like IT specialist, for example, but you're working in higher education? And then
Right.
you get another job as an IT specialist in healthcare.
Yep.
Is that considered switching
Yep.
industries?
No.
No.
You would be, there's a line to follow. Yeah, exactly. So let's say you are a teacher and then you're like, never mind, I'm a nurse now, right? So it's a pretty big swing. Yeah. That would usually require more schooling too, which would be a gap or whatever, but you know, you're kind of doing a full on switch. Yeah. Good questions. And I think most of all, it's just like, it's subjective, shockingly enough. A lot of those things are subjective and what we can push through underwriting and why we have to work with lenders who can push things through underwriting.
Yeah.
And realtors who help them understand how to push things through underwriting.
Biggest thing, like, don't be intimidated.
Yes. Yeah. Martin saying the biggest thing he heard, I don't know how much they can hear from here, but is to not be intimidated to ask the questions. And it's always good to have those kinds of conversations over the phone or in person, so that you can put that strategy together without a ton of, before you start putting together your documentation. So simple, not easy. Again, priorities. It's hard, right? If you're in a long term, like it's going to take me a year to get to where I can buy a home. It's hard to not spend the money on stuff you want to do. I have a client who's an entrepreneur and he cracked me up. He sent me a picture. He's like, he has to figure out his stuff to buy. And he's like, and I accidentally just bought a cold plunge. I'm like, that is not what I need you spending money on right now. Right? Like, I understand how great that's going to feel, but can you return it? This was a bad decision. But it was through a confession and he's not going to return it. So that's good. But it is really the budgeting and thinking about the long term. Like I said in the first slide about this, you know, pay your bills first, pay your savings next, and then have fun. That I grew up in a very fiscally conservative family, but also a family that talked openly about money, which I have learned in my adulthood is so rare. You know, when talking about money, like that is like knowledge is power. We're not sharing. That's how we've been oppressed and we've kept the money so exclusive for so long. So having those kinds of conversations, and I didn't know that, right? You only know the family you grew up with, right? But a lot of the like rich dad, poor dad stuff, I was apparently taught before I knew what that was. That dog is just, spinning in circles, not making any progress because they keep buying those red pumps. I wonder if I have any pictures of me in them. That would be great. Being intentional with your spending, always make more than you spend. I mean, that again, the fiscally conservative family I was raised in has served me so well because, you know, I was able to triple my income and never change my spending habits. Except for I stopped with the pumps. But anyways, the like always just making sure you're making more than you're spending. And that's easier said than done some months and some years in life, right? I mean, unexpected expenses happen, but being proactive versus reactive with money, which is again, easier said than done if you don't have somebody with you to help you do that, right? And that's like what we create here with our relationships that we create with our clients and our community is like these long-term relationships where we're going to help people bounce that off. How do you create a budget? We have great financial planners that want to start there with you. They're not going to ask you to make an investment, to start an investment fund with them until you have what you need to get through your day-to-day, then your 3 months to 6 months of savings. Then we're going to start talking about investing, right? So it really is like Don't be intimidated by it, and have the conversations and be aligned with people who are wanting to help you grow. Don't be sold on stuff, you know? What if? I have a plan for that. I mean, that was the best line of any campaign. And yeah, so anyways, again, I created this couple, I don't know, a while ago, but I got a plan for that. You want to move? Cool. You own a home, you want to move? You can rent it out. You can sell it. If you need to sell it sooner than 2 years, you got to have a good reason. Otherwise you're going to pay cap gains taxes, right? So I feel like we have, I have a listing right now where she will close probably a week after her 2-year anniversary. And we're going to strategically do it that way. So she can use her money the way she wants to use it and doesn't have to pay taxes on it. You can rent it out. You get a job offer, you have to go somewhere else, turn it into a rental. If you get a job offer and you have to go somewhere else, you can sell it and still keep the capital gains because your job moved you. So there's always options. You get in there, it's too small, it's too big, etc. You have options. Again, once you own the nut, you get to make your own decisions. You have the control. You hate it, the recession hits, etc. I think that when I bought my home in 2005, the economy was very different. And I was making very different money than I was making in 2009. I took about a 50% hit on my income. And there were months where I used to write checks for my car payment. That's how long ago this was. And I just not sign it because I knew I needed them to call me and say, hey, you didn't sign your check. So I could send one again once I got paid again, right? But I paid my house first. And that is how I was able to hold on to it I was in sales during the recession. We got hit really hard. 08 to 09. Yeah. 09, 10. Like it was tough years income wise, having been in sales, and I was in advertising sales for a newspaper. If you want to talk about changes, it was an industry that was changing. Right. So no matter what, when you're in a position you are in the position of power once you own the home. I knew worst case, I could rent my home and then go rent something cheaper, further out, maybe not where I wanted to live, or I could bring in a roommate. It was a 1-bedroom. I was dating a guy that didn't pay rent. So many bad decisions. He moved in, didn't help, but don't do that. Gosh, I'm really sharing a lot of bad decisions with you guys.
You gotta answer the phone calls. When they call, you have to answer, have to talk to them.
Answer the phone calls when you're missing payments.
Yeah.
Yeah, make your mortgage first.
Yeah.
Worst case, what are they gonna do? Take your Jeep? It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, answer the phone calls. I know, the daunting, right? I mean, to your point, like the kicking the can down the road makes it worse, not better. Especially if a recession hits, that's the best to negotiate that. All right, which loan's best for you? There's not an answer to that. I've taught versions of homeownership classes for 10 years now. And I've gone over all the different kinds of loans from a very 30,000 foot view, but ultimately what we always end up with is the loan that's best for you is the loan that's best for you. The biggest thing that we really push our home buyers on when planning is that you live in the monthly payment, not the purchase price. Again, when we think about the headlines, with the rapid appreciation of home costs, if you look at, home prices now versus in 1980, well, in 1980, interest rates were 18%, right? So when you think about your monthly payment, that's very different than if you're buying a home that's 5 times the price, but your interest rate's 3%. So really what we live in and how we budget and how we live our lives is in a monthly payment. And so that's what we're always helping our clients back into. And I know James and I talk a lot about how the HOA affects the monthly payment, how the taxes affect the monthly payment. And so it's really a very custom approach of what is your monthly payment going to be and what's getting you there, right? And then, an HOA may not allow you to use an FHA loan. So FHA loans, they're manually underwritten. They're not doing the desktop underwriting. So sometimes they can be really good, especially if you need exceptions. But if an HOA doesn't allow for it, then that's not even an option if you're buying a condo. Yeah. HOAs have to apply for VA loans and FHA loans. They have to have approval. Once they have a VA approval, they have it forever. FHA, they have to keep re-upping. So the incentive used to be for condo complexes back in the day was you either had to put 20% down or you could put 3.5% down for an FHA loan because conventional used to require the 20%. And so obviously every condo complex was like, well, yeah, we got to have FHA because these are a lot of people's first homes. They're not going to always have 20%. Well, as we've continued to grow options as the prices have grown and interest rates have lowered. The home prices have grown. The HOAs are less invested in getting that approved again because there's a 3% option, a 5% option, a 10, 15, et cetera, right? And so you'll find it, harder and harder to get, to find FHA approved condos.
And the real estate industry is not helping out either.
Correct.
No.
The pace and supply and demand for sure. Because the HOAs don't have to appeal to the mass, like they have plenty of people wanting to get in, and that wasn't always the case. All the variables, length of time you intend to keep the loan. Right now, I've always advised getting a 30-year fixed or a 15-year fixed if you're in that point of life, but or in that position of purchase price. But getting a fixed rate, it's again that fixed rate on an appreciating asset. There are ARMs out there which they're going to adjust. It's an adjustable rate mortgage, and at times those can make sense. When I was buying in 2005. My first place, there were balloon payments. The amount I was approved for as a 22-year-old was stupid. And then they were like, but in 10 years, you're going to have to pay $100,000. I was like, the heck? Like, how would I ever, I literally left a bar tab open at 2 places last night. Like, I cannot save $100,000 to pay back. And so luckily I was actually, I called my dad and I said, Dad, do you want to make an investment in Denver? And he said, no. I gave him a whole presentation. I said, $10,000 investment in my first home. My sister's getting married. You're paying for that. That's stupid. You're not getting that money back, right? I'm just asking you to give me a loan. My dad said, no. So, well, they just approved me for, I think I was approved for like 500 or 600, something stupid. My first place was 178. And he said, Linz, I'm in Illinois. I don't know what's going on there, but go to a bank. And thankfully I did. I went to a bank and I got an FHA loan. So I was fixed with the 3.5% down. So I've since obviously refied it because that's what we do. It was at a 5.875, which was the best rate then. And it's changed obviously since then, but the length of time and the type of loan you pick is super important. What does your access for a down payment look like? Most of us for our first homes, you may have a dad that you could apply for a loan from that you're going to pay him back in 12 months because your sister got married at 22 and she makes bad decisions. You're making good ones. They're still married. It's fine. And he'll say no. And so then you have to save your own. And so literally I remember running with my commission check. Again, we wore heels then. It's crazy when I was at the Denver Post and Rocky Mountain News, running across the street to turn the commission check into a cashier's check to go to my closing. And my first down payment was $6,500. And for me, it was like, that's a lot of money. And it was like, I did it, I can do this. And then I was like, don't drop it. Like, I don't know what happens with this now. Like, do I put it in a folder? It's very weird. I also had pink and white nails. There's a picture. Anyways. And then, what loans are allowed on the property? Again, most of all, you live in the payment, not the purchase price.
So can mom or dad give me money for a down
Oh my
payment?
God, Mark, I love you right now. I went through a lot. That was long. I feel like I went longer than I thought I would. It's probably the stories about my dad denying me my loan and my red shoes. I know. No, I bring it up to him. Just the other year. It was last year. He said, hey, what if I wanted to make, no, I don't go to Thanksgiving with them. That's too much. But my dad called and said, what if I wanted to make some investments in Denver real estate? I was like, look who's coming around. It just took you 18 years, Reg. Yeah. You asked, what if somebody had gift funds to give you? Yeah. So that is an option. And every different loan program has different limitations around that. I think a lot of what we're doing is educating on what those options are, whether it's a gift fund from a family member or if it's from a grant program, and helping everyone really navigate what their options are to access cash that they're not going to have to pay back. And that's the grants or a gift. If a parent is gifting or a family member is gifting, one of the issues that a lot of those family members run into is that they have to verify those funds. And so then all of a sudden this family member has to show them all their bank statements. So the workaround for that is if they just wire it directly to title, because we've run into that with some buyers. And how
you have the money, like let's say they gifted you like a month before you start looking for a
yes,
home, and they see this big deposit in your account, you just have to have a letter saying that it's a gift. It has to be from certain person in your family.
Yes.
Like a third uncle.
Yes.
Like, certain person in your family.
I feel like the gift rules are always changing too, right?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to make sure that, you're talking about it with your lender and what you have and like how you plan to, bring money to the down payment. But a lot of it is just making sure that it's not a back alley transaction where you're going to pay it back later.
Right.
It has to be a gift. It has to be
Yes.
something that you have no obligation to pay back. So you can tell your dad you're going to pay them back. verbally,
Yeah,
but
you can't sign that, yeah. Mhm. No.
No, so like the following year, so say like, mom, I'm trying to buy a home, oh, here's like 50 grand to buy your home. Cool, thanks, but do you have to then pay taxes on that the following year, like as income?
You would definitely want to talk to your CPA about it. And again, if they just wire the funds directly to title, then it doesn't.
Closer to 200,000.
Yeah, there's
It's
certain like allowances for gift amounts per year and depending on who it's from. So CPAs are,
Yeah.
or, a lender, a more professional situation. I want to say that you're in the advice on lending, but just in that situation, you have to go on this.
I drink and give tons of advice.
You're saying more about
It's like more and more.
This is a double IPA.
There you go. Well, and like, where are people getting $50,000 to gift, right? I'll tell you where. I know, right? I know. It's because they own homes, right? So that is like what we try and break here is like, let's get everyone their piece of the pie because that's the generational wealth that's helping drive our prices up and helping other people get into homes. And so when we don't have access to that as buyers, we're leveraging private programs through grants to kind of help, give us somewhat equal starting lines.
What happens if they find out that you're paying back the gift? Or
Nothing.
What scenario would they ever even really look into?
James, this is recording right now. Why would you ask me that? I'm kidding.
It's not great.
I mean, the preferred side.
Like legally, no. you should-
Yeah, legally you should not.
Don't tell your realtor or your lender.
Just don't tell.
Yes.
So then that also applies to like if you're borrowing a different term. Like you have to pay that back as well. It's also frowned upon.
I mean, that's different. I mean, your 401k, there's different penalties to like pull money out. That's more, so like technically that's your money that you saved, but there's penalties depending on the program as to like how much you want to pull it out. And if you're pulling out before your retirement age, sometimes you have to pay like a 10% fee to pull it out. So it'll just be
Yeah, it's retirement plan specific.
But like life insurance has a cash value. A lot of people buy their first homes with life insurance, but their parents may have taken out money.
Again, like if they did, right? I mean, my uncle's one of my financial advisors. I actually work with two, because one for the business and one for my personal. And he's like, put a life insurance on your son. He was like, one. I was like, the hell I will. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, can we just not talk about it? I was like, fine. Because it's really cheap when they're young.
It's not a morbid thing. It's
I know, but it's really, cost effective. But yeah, it was like, can we never talk about it again? And now I'm talking about it. But
But it goes back to live in my monthly payment.
Mhm.
I afford life insurance for my child.
Yep.
so for that, for my monthly payment, and then I set them up that much better. Their
Yep.
next phase in life.
no, it's true. What's your name? Diasha. Hi, I haven't met you before. Thank you. That was a great question. So Diasha asked about borrowing against retirement. And I think, again, it's like so custom. And that's why there's not just one plan. And so it depends on what your retirement plan is. And then I know that during the old Pandy, that's what we call her when she's being cute, you could borrow against retirement differently. I mean, there were situations in place so people could borrow against it without penalty. So it's, yeah, 'cause of hardship, yep.
And then I learned to pay taxes. You do have to pay taxes when you pull like from your 401k. So when you want to, a lot of times the company will hold that, but they might not hold exactly enough, so you have to make those decisions.
Yeah. But you can borrow usually against, and then, it just depends. I've never done that. I also now don't have much in the way of like traditional retirement accounts.
And I was told that I could borrow if I apply for like a hardship. And then I wouldn't have to pay back at that point. So
401ks are a lot more friendly than like IRAs and
it's
stuff
a
like that.
403B. So it's kind of different. I have a
What's that?
403B.
Okay.
Sorry.
I've got a 401k and a 403b.
A 403B is retirement from a nonprofit.
Yeah.
I have heard of that. I didn't know the differentiator. Okay. What other questions? Those are really good. We can go through the Mythbusters, but we're pushing, what time is it? 7? Yep.
Go 3 minutes now.
It's about 4 hours before I'll be done with work for the day. 'Tis the season. But yeah, any Q&A from the group from online? We're good? Cool. We can run through these myth busting real quick, and then we'll all stay and visit and talk more as well for those of you that are here. The biggest myth I hear is I need 20% down. Nicole and I have talked about this. That's what people want you to believe, right? Why would we educate otherwise? 20% down is hard. 20% down was a lot easier when homes were $50,000, right? It's really hard when they're 700. So you don't need 20% down. You need 3%. If you're a veteran, you need 0. There's other options. I will tell you in this market though, with how competitive it is, it's really hard to do a 0%, or as James is experiencing with some of his clients, even FHA is really difficult. And so really helping set you up with those kinds of grant funds that'll help with that amount of money is huge. And then, you know, also if you have 20%, let's say from selling your home and you don't actually plan to put it all in the next home, you can show that you have 20% because sellers perceive that as strength of buyer. So there's a lot of strategy with that, which we're not going to go super down a rabbit hole with today. If you guys want to come to our meeting on Monday, we'll be going really down into that with the agents. I'll wait until the market slows down, the bubble bursts. Unfortunately, there's not, the market could slow. I fear it getting faster. I think that would be bad. There's not going to be a bubble. So the bubble that we went through that caused the recession was poor lending practices and poor regulations. There's been a lot of things put in place, and when we talk about all the regulations that we have in place and all the rules around each and every loan now, we're keeping people from, you know, being able to buy a home with no verified income, which was happening. If you've seen The Big Short, that's what happened. A dog did get a home, of course, in Florida. Leave it to Florida, always. A dog was on title in Florida. That's true. So there won't be a bubble. It's true.
That's crazy.
I know. Marty could have Marty, our office dog who can't be here. When there's what?
Straw buyers.
That's right. He can't be here when there's a lot of people because he's not very nice.
Before I go, Lindsay, can you explain?
Terrence, yes.
So exactly what is the bubble? I've been hearing this for
Mhm.
45 years.
45.
People just like,
The bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the people I've heard talk about that.
No, that's a good question. Yeah. So the bubble was an overvaluation of homes over what it would actually sell for. And so what was happening in 08, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, before it all came crashing down, is that lenders were talking directly with the appraisers, and they would say, hey, man would say to man, always when it's bad. We would do man to man. Yeah. Anyways, they would say, hey, buddy, I need you to appraise this for $750. The appraiser's like, well, the comps speak to $700. He's like, yeah, but I'm gonna take you to Capitol Grill. It's gonna be fine. So we would get these overvaluations. And so people were able to borrow more money from their homes than it was actually worth. They were also able to borrow up to 100%. So now if you own a $700,000 home, you're borrowing up to 95, maybe in a HELOC situation, depending upon the lender, but you're never getting there. The other thing is people just owed more, right? I mean, right now, I think we had one foreclosure all of last month in Colorado. So that's what causes foreclosures, is having owing more on your home than it's worth. Right now, we have 40% equity nationwide in our homes because it's a very cash heavy market. Sorry.
We're qualifying for these loans too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not-
The qualifications for these loans are a lot different. So the bubble that burst was the amount of people who owed way more on their homes than they could sell them for. And so that was the bubble.
So it's like a lot of the questions you had of like lenders verifying your income, making sure that you're able to, that you're in a good spot to pay your mortgage. And that whole idea is that if you're not in a good spot, that's okay too. Just like, let's figure out where we need to be to get you in the spot to like be it.
But no more dogs getting out.
Dogs don't get houses anymore, for better or for worse. And then we talked a lot about credit tonight, which is a very important thing to talk about. It's a complicated game, again, I think by reason. I mean, you know, the algorithm, yeah. So our mission here is to help everyone know how to play the game and how to leverage the relationships that you have here at Live Laugh and in your community to play the game the best you can. And then eventually leverage all the tax benefits that homeownership and real estate investing have offered the top, we could say 1%, but I mean, really the top 10%, 20% have been leveraging for years. That has led to, gosh, I just want to be really political, but I'm not going to. That has led to such a small percentage of people owning so much of the wealth, which is dangerous.
Keep asking questions, people.
Yep. Okay. Yes.
So if you have a 640 or above, so I currently have a loan with you, and I was told by my DPA program that I didn't qualify for DPA assistance because I had more than 3 late payments, like 5-6 years ago. So how far back can they look back for late payment or negative remarks? Usually 7 years, but yeah, I mean, that's usually like what I've seen, which feels like a long time, but I mean, obviously it's a point. But-
Go ahead.
Thank
You're
you.
good. Yeah.
I have
Thanks,
some
Terrence.
places to go to, so I got-
Okay. Yeah. Have a good night. I'll talk to you later. Take food. Yeah. Take cookies. Take some salami. So yeah, they can go back 7 years. I want to talk to you more about who's doing your credit repair
Yeah.
and credit work, because someone could potentially negotiate that off.
Yeah.
And that's the goal, is to, to leverage the right people to get that off. Did you see the pause? Okay, it's over. We're done with Zoom.
I didn't.
Is that
stop
right?
it.
Or you just
It's
took it?
still
Okay.
going.
So it's just
No,
frozen.
It's
Neat.
just frozen.
Um,
We're saying things online though, if we need to go.
Yep, perfect. So yeah, I mean, and that is like having people go to bat and see what they can do. And if one person can't do anything, let's try another. It's not gonna hurt to try a potential different route. And it stinks when you've made right on that stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's the same if somebody has had a bankruptcy. It takes a long time, but after 2 years, you can go FHA. Obviously, we have, limitations now of how much you can get FHA. I can't.